Good evening, everybody. At this time, we're going to open the pre-application part of the hearing. The official hearing doesn't open until after we do pre-applications. So tonight, we do have a pre-application for Unity and Booth Hill Roads from Connecticut Trumbull Village LLC, Village Resident District. You have 10 or 15 minutes. Good luck.
Good. So good evening. My name is.
Yeah, put the green button. There you go.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Matt Mahaley. I'm here with CT Trumbull Village LLC. I also have our attorney, Chris Russo from Russo Rizzio. So the last time this project was in front of the board was back in 2022. We're excited to bring it back in front of the board to get initial feedback. It was generally well received when it was first here. We're excited to propose the VRD district, potentially off of Unity Road and Booth Hill Road. So it's going to include a combination of approximately 6 parcels. They're all under similar ownership between families. I actually am one of the landowners off of Unity Road, and this property has been in my family for several years, dating back to the 1940s. So just a brief overview of the project, and I'll pass it over to Chris here to go into more detail. So there's approximately 49 units. 3 existing dwellings are proposed to remain. We have 2 access roads off of Booth Hill Road.
Slow down.
Yes, sir.
You're proposing 49?
We're showing 49, yes.
49. And what was the two that are there
Yeah,
are
there's
going to
three-
stay?
Three existing dwellings are expected to remain.
So the project would be 52.
No, with the 49, sorry.
Within the 49?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I slowed you down.
A little nervous.
There we go.
But anyhow, I'll pass it over to Chris to go in more detail. So.
Good, thank you.
Chairman, members of the commission, good to be before you. Happy New Year. Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices at 10 Saskill Hill Road in Fairfield, here on behalf of the pre-applicant. As Matt was saying, the proposal is to make an amendment to your village residence district regulation. It's nothing to do with sort of the development bulk of the VRD. So we're not proposing an increase in the density cap. We're not proposing any change to the setbacks, impervious coverage, and basically any type of change in how, units are supposed to be oriented in a VRD. The amendment which we submitted with the pre-application would be to allow a VRD which has to be located in its entire area, so not just a portion of it, but that you would know the entire area of the VRD would be within 2,500 feet of the intersection of the exit 50 ramp at Mayor Parkway and White Plains Road. And it would be located north of the Mayor Parkway and east of White Plains Road. And so in your regulations and what it states under the purpose of the VRD is the VRD acknowledged that there were certain parcels in the town, properties that were appropriate for a VRD, and obviously laid out a bunch of standards. We arrived with this amendment and this language because we felt that a VRD was appropriate in this area, this area fit the intent of the VRD because what the VRD talks about is providing housing choice in areas near community nodes. This is in proximity, it's near Trumbull Center, it's obviously near a major thoroughfare in the Mayor Parkway. And this particular section, west of White Plains Road, there's a lot more smaller lots and single-family dwellings closer together. South of the Mayor on the eastern side, and that zone, I forgot to mention, that zone on that western side is the half-acre zone. On the eastern side, it switches to acre zones, to an acre zone, but south of the Merritt, again, you have that density. The houses are a lot closer together. A lot of those properties are non-conforming. North is where it starts to open up a bit, including my client's property. And that's where we think this is a location that isn't that meets your kind of outlines for the VRD. It has the size; it's between the 10 and 30 acres. And as
How many
you can see-
acres is this?
16.4.
16.4.
Right. So, and I think what you can see in this plan is how we can achieve and meet all your standards for the VRD. It's really just an amendment that would allow a VRD and give this commission an option to designate a VRD in this area. Housing demand, obviously there's all forms throughout kind of, there's housing demand for apartments, there's housing demand for senior living, and there's housing demand as well for single-family dwellings. And we think this development provides an opportunity to create a great single-family neighborhood that's in character with the area that surrounds it, but has the space and the size to buffer neighboring uses. And as well as it's a convenient location that's close to a major corridor, and obviously the Merit. So that, I'm happy to walk through. It's obviously a conceptual plan. Just so you know, I know some people weren't on the board previously when I presented. There has been a change since we originally presented, and that was the addition of a piece over here, which we think was an important addition to the development, because it allows this road, which you can see here is the wetlands, and it allowed us to shift this road out of the wetland area. So it helped minimize impacts. So that's a change from when we've last been here. But again, it's an evenly distributed, single-family neighborhood that we think will be a real asset to the town.
Through the chair. Mr. Russo, can you just point out the wetlands again, please?
Yeah, so everything green is wetlands. So originally, this piece was not a part of the development. This piece was acquired. And so now this road shifted, so it's out of that area, out of this wetlands area.
So all the green area is wetland? Mm-hmm. Okay, not the 100 feet zone, just the wetland itself.
I believe it's just the wetland itself. Yeah, it's just the wetland itself. Those are the actual wetland bounds.
Okay, so when we look at 16.4 acres, are we considering just overall buildable acreage as a separate number? Do we have that?
16.4 is the total, isn't it? It's the total.
Buildable acreage.
It's the buildable acreage. Yeah.
It's the wetlands.
Includes the, okay. Well,
Okay, so there's 16.4 acres on property.
there's 16.4 buildable land without the wetlands. Is that right? Without the wetlands?
The gross area, 16.4 includes the wetlands taken out, so 16.4 is the buildable acreage.
Okay.
Okay, do we know how large the entire parcel is? Because according to your,
Do me a favor, you have to be
Yeah,
at the
just
microphone
to
so
be at the
everybody
mic,
in town can hear it on the recording and TV.
Yeah, so
because the proposed regulation mentions total acreage, and we're dealing with the buildable minus the wetland, so.
Yeah,
maybe
so
just
the
clarify.
minimum acreage for the VRD is 10 acres, right? So we have 6 parcels, they're all various sizes. When we combine the lots, we would have a minimum of, at 10 acres, I believe it's approximately 20. And then we take out the wetlands that are accounted for, the buildable acreage is 16.4. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yes, and some of these properties, perhaps the scale is a little off, but some of these properties do seem to be, I would assume as close as perhaps 5 feet from the wetland.
They do encroach in the wetland buffer, but the houses don't touch the wetland at all. But I'd have to ask the engineer for the correct distance.
Yeah, there's a lot, Commissioner, there's a lot of engineering work that has to be done to determine exactly where those end up getting located. And where there's opportunities that we can shift them further away from the wetlands, we'll certainly do that and try to get, more of a buffer area there. But we haven't reached that level of engineering yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Attorney Cordone, I just want to make sure that I'm correct. When we have these zones and the acreage is required for build, there is no segregation between buildable and the total acreage. What the buildable references is where they can build and how much they can build. But to be able to establish that zone and develop that number, they just need the total number of acreage. There's no subset within the zone that says you need 10 to 16, but you can't have a concentration higher than 3 or 4 per acre, right?
Mr. Chairman, it depends on what's actually in the text of the regulation. So some regulations may require a buildable, so many units per buildable acre, and some regulations may require so many units per total acre. The total acreage of the zone may also determine whether you could put the zone there. I believe Attorney Russo would have to take a look at the regulation and make sure that it could apply to this site.
It definitely applies. So the VRD size shall contain a gross area of not less than 10 acres and no larger than 30. So we're in between that range. And then when you go to figure out the density, it's at a density of no more than 3.5 dwelling units per net acre lot, which is gross acreage less existing wetlands and watercourses. That's how it's currently calculated.
Does it qualify for that?
Yes.
So not more than 3.5, I got the regulation in front of me, not more than 3.5 per buildable, right?
Right. So the buildable 16.
Okay. So why are you using 16 when that's not the full acreage?
Well, that's just to determine the density now, because you need to use the buildable to determine your total density.
Understood. So what's the actual gross acreage?
The gross age, not the buildable. Beyond that,
Yes.
it's about 20 acres.
I'm just wondering why on your pre-app you're using the 16.4 and not the 20, because it's, it seems like one is more to your advantage than the other.
Well, I think it's just because the 16.4 is what's used in the is just used for a lot of the calculations. So just to relay that.
It seems like also if you do 16 times 3, it's below 50. They can't go over 50 anyway.
What's 3?
To the question you're asking, that would have added to the confusion of the question I asked, right? Because they're using the smaller number, they're actually giving us the number of acreage that they're putting houses on to be divided by, rather than the total. And, they can say I have 30 acres, but if they're only building on 10, that's what we need to know. And they're giving us the buildable number, so that's a good thing.
Right, and the 3.5 is the operative number there, right? If you can't exceed 3.5 in terms of.
Right, so if they were to use the 16 acres at 3.5 units, they'd be jamming more than 50 in there, which they can't, so.
You know what? Might have misspoke. The 16.4 is the gross acreage without the wetlands, because if you do 49 divided by 3.5, it's around 14 acres. So,
Okay. So sorry about that, but still it qualifies as a VRD. It's above the 10 acres. It would have a limited density cap, though, that would be 3.5, 14 acres.
What's the math on that, Rich? I see you doing it.
I'm a lawyer, not a mathematician.
Yeah, it sounds.
Well, if there's 16.4 acres and they're using a number of 14,
14, right.
It's 14 buildable, they said.
right, but putting 3.5 units per acre, it would take them up to 49.
Which is what
It should be 47, I think we said, because there were homes already there. The numbers do seem to be relatively close.
well, the 49 would include those 3 dwellings, which we would include in part of
only
the
46
VRD.
new dwellings. Yeah.
Okay. So, you have more?
No, I mean, that's it.
So, I'm not going to wait till the end. I'm going to say this piece now, and then let the rest of the commissioners chime in. I know I speak for the commission itself, but I also know that the commission itself, being the individual commissioners, would be, there's no guarantees of approval, right? So everybody at home who's watching and people are here, the purpose of a pre-application is for an applicant to get the input from the board, from the commission, to say, this is something we could be interested in. This is something, if you did come forward, you'd have to dot some more I's and T's. And people in the investment world don't want to invest $100,000 in a development that they don't have a chance at. They'll invest something to say, are we on the right track? That's kind of why we're at. So we have to walk a fine line here in our comments so that we don't look predisposed. But I can tell you one predisposition, which is an absolute predisposition, that would be to your advantage, right? With the intensity of development that's going on in Trumbull. People realize there are only 10 houses for sale in Trumbull at any one time, right? So the stock is down and new stock is needed. What kind of new stock? one of the things that this commission has concentrated on with some of the developments that have come are 55 and over. And the last few 55 and over developments that have come to town, right, are completely successful. All right? So one of the things, if somebody said to me, hey, you have a path with several hurdles this way, and you have a path with less hurdles this way, that's what I'm describing to you. It is in everybody's best interest, because as, you know, the reporter called last week, I was quoted in the paper, but I couldn't specifically talk about any one development. And I couldn't say whether we're doing yes or no's, but I did describe the impact of regular housing brings more service drain, not necessarily negative, but it adds to the service requirements. It's probably an easier way to say it. 55 and over is much less likely to put that service drain on the schools. That is one of the major concerns for people everywhere in town, because the schools are the driver, they're the largest piece of the budget, and when you have a development that's going to come in, and like I said, just you guys know your own field. Take a look at Trumbull and what was successful. They were. We're telling you the same thing. You have every right to come in here and say, we want an open development. Good luck to you. But you also have the right to say, I understand what Trumbull has, I understand what Trumbull needs, and I understand what works for Trumbull. That makes sense? Any other commissioners, feel free to chime in. Go ahead.
Through the chair, my question is, what, you know, if memory serves correctly, we put in the VRD with the, what is it, 200 feet from a exit on a state highway?
200 feet of unbroken frontage on a state highway.
And I thought there was a reference to an exit, but anyway, all right.
Well, in our proposed amendment, there's a reference to allowing VRDs as well in a location that's within 2,500 feet of the exit ramp at exit 50 in the main parkway.
Yeah, I mean, that's, to me, you know, the purpose of having that kind of density in housing would be to, you know, for people who are going to hop right on the highway and, you know, go to work or whatever. So that would make sense from my perspective. The other question I have is, so Booth Hill and Unity are a difficult intersection, and we all know that property, and I think there's ledge in the back. How do you propose to put in whatever it is, 48, 49 houses, and manage that kind of traffic congestion with this, you know, coming in at an angle and all that stuff?
Well, you know, and I think, you know, Commissioner, that's part that will play itself out in the actual application. We have talked with a traffic consultant about this site and sight lines and things like that. None that's been finalized yet, but they feel confident for this number of units that this is, you know, this is a viable project and it can be done safely.
To Commissioner Silber's point, one would think that when you're coming back, those entrance exits should probably be wider than required, especially with his comment. You know, if you're required, give
Sure.
people the room to one in, one out, one pull to the side, see what's coming, see what's not coming. You know, that would add to the criteria. You know, there's a lot of, this is more the conceptual for the commissioners. This is more the conceptual, the P's and Q's of, you know, how many feet and what number and what exit and what's required within the guidelines itself. We can work that out and let staff work that out. It's more the concept for the area and the development. You know, whether the density is the right number, should be higher, should be lower. That's kind of the things we're talking about, and does it make sense? Go ahead, Rich.
Just a comment, we need to consider what is the purpose of the Village Residence District. We know what applicant has said. What was the original purpose? Right, but
You got the
was
right.
it, of course, but was it supposed to be for a specific area? In other words, was that why we restricted it to areas along state highways? And yes, there are some strange places like Park Street that are state highways, but by and large, we're talking about major nodes. Is Unity Road and Booth Hill considered one of those? Should we expand it? Why 2,500 feet? I mean, it goes the other way as well. I'm curious to see how far
So
this is. Is it $24.99. Is it just there? That's nearly half a mile.
If you wouldn't mind. So those are good questions, and we don't have a lot more time left. But one of the things that I'll describe is, in the past, people say you're always changing the rules for developers, right? And the answer to that statement is yes. That's our job. Because if we didn't, there'd be one set of rules, and there'd be a nice old lady in the office with a pass-fail stamp, and this would still be a farming town. So it's our job. So when you say what was the intent was to probably make a successful development at that time that development was being proposed. And what happens down the road is other developments show up and say, we can use that, we might have to tweak it, we can use it like it is. And that's what we're experiencing. Trying to go historically and look for cement shoes to say, does this serve an initial purpose? The initial purpose was the first design and the first development, right? And then we have to see where and can it go, and does it make sense to be here in the future with the modifications or any that they're asking for, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, in general, this map certainly will have to be engineered a little differently. I personally like having a backyard. I love yards. I love green. If I lived in lot number 41, there wouldn't be a lot of green, unless you count the green in the wetlands map. Okay, I know I've gone too far. Thank you.
Mr. Cousins, do you have anything before we let them go? Because we're behind now. Ms. Delvecchio, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm going to echo your concerns about just the area, and I live not far from there. I actually grew up Booth Hill Road, so concerns about that it's coming on and off Booth Hill Road, even though I know you've made accommodations with other roads coming off, but just the sightlines and the density, and it's my understanding, I think Booth Hill School is one of the most crowded schools in our town, so concerns about that.
Yeah.
Alyssa?
Sure. And just because I'm new, is this an HOA?
Well, yeah, it would be an HOA, correct?
Okay.
yeah.
And so is there anything besides the housing that's in there? Is there any community pool or community?
It's not proposed. I think it's something we could look at too as the engineering shakes out and seeing where houses are specifically located. But right now, it doesn't have a proposal for a clubhouse or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you.
We have both in town. So some come with them, some don't, right on them. There's no requirement in our language for it. All right, so everybody's all set? You have our input to the best of our ability. Thank you for coming.
Everybody for the feedback. We look forward to coming back, and we will come back with a lot of information, including with traffic, and also impact analysis. That's something we can provide as to what impacts that we think that this would generate on the schools and what it would generate with regard to tax revenue if the amendment's approved, of course.
Some concentration on the traffic, as you saw 3 commissioners talked about it. So
Absolutely. Just to show, I think when you look at it, you'll see it lays out like a VRD development will look like, but then we'll also make sure we come and explain why we think it's an appropriate location for it.
My last comment would be, one of the things that's a benefit to this is it's not just another flat, oh, look at all the houses they just built there. Because of the topography, some people thought it was a negative. It actually can be a positive because the developments are up and around, and it's almost like a neighborhood rather than flat land. To me, I like that part of it. Not necessarily going to say that it's sailing past the finish line, but it is a benefit.
Great. Thanks
Thanks for your time.
I appreciate that.
All right,
Appreciate
everybody, we're going to start. Give us about 2 minutes, and we'll start the real meeting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, where's that name? We are going to open the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we'll do roll call. Commissioner Cousins is here. Commissioner Deacon is here. Commissioner Del Vecchio is here. We have a brand new alternate on our side. Alyssa Hall is here. Congratulations and welcome. And we have Commissioner Silver here celebrating his birthday. Happy birthday, Commissioner Silver. So keep your speeches short, folks. All right, so we're going to move on. Linda, we're good? I'm here too. Okay. Special permit for text amendment number 1 for, I'm not going to read the whole thing, file 2418 has sent in and asked that it be tabled until the February meeting. So I need a motion. Mr. Deacon, second it. Mr. Silver, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Text amendment number 2, applicant 2105, 2125 Reservoir Avenue LLC is requesting to create Article 2, Section 2.8 Workforce Residence District Overlay Zone and a Residence A Zone to construct residential units for workforce housing. Copy of regulation on file with the Trumbull P&Z office and Trumbull Town Clerk, file 2421, continued from the December 18 meeting. Name and address for the record.
Attorney Stephen Bellis. I'm with the Pellegrino Law Firm in New Haven. I live in Shelton. I had a zoning hearing in Shelton at the same time as this hearing, and I elected to pick yours and continue theirs. So
Okay. So
I'm just currying favor. No,
just so I'll get some logistics out up front so you know where we're going. I think you may already, but we're going to hear what you have. We're going to hear any updates to any of the questions we had last time. I'm not 100% positive that the 2 missing commissioners are up to date and got a chance to do and watch the video, but they'll be able to hear you tonight and have time. So any actions we take will not be, if we're taking, until next month, but we did want to give you the opportunity to present and update us with what you may have.
that's fine.
Good, okay.
So I'll briefly recap why I'm here, and then I will give, as the chairman said, some of the revisions. So I think we all know that there's an affordable housing statute, and none of us really like it from the town's perspective because you can build higher density without the commission having any say over that. We also don't have what we have. We don't have a workforce statute in place at this time for people that are working and make 80% of the annual median income. It's just we don't have that regulation. So I'm proposing a workforce text amendment. That text amendment would be it would be limited. It's an overlay zone. Overlay zones are allowed by state statute. They hover over the existing zones, and they can land if the applicant meets certain criteria. And this one's pretty easy. The criteria is that you could have anything. You could have a gross area of between 1 acre and 5 acres, if your lot falls in that. And the second is it must be in residential zone A and within 300 feet of IL2 zone. So that's where this can land, in those 2 spots. The allowed uses would be a maximum of 50 units if you make an application. And then the rest of the text amendment states what the bulk standards are, which I'm not going to take you through and all that. What it basically does is allow someone to have, if you have that criteria, 1 to 5 acres, you're in a residence A zone, you're allowed to have 7 units per acre. So you could build 7 units per acre. So if you have 1 acre, you could build 7 units, no more than that. So if you had 2 acres, you could do 14. The long and the short of it is that there was some ambiguity with some of the language in a couple of the paragraphs. So what I did was I contacted Attorney Jim Cordone. We had some discussions, and I gave him a proposals, and we talked about trying to tighten up some of the paragraphs so there wouldn't be any ambiguity or confusion. That's why I'm here tonight. So I have a small handout, which I think there were maybe 3 changes that I made from my original text amendment that I think addressed your concerns from the last meeting. So if I have permission to hand those out.
Please do.
Chairman? Can we? Fred?
What?
Sorry. I'd like to, could you walk us through what those changes are?
Yeah, I'm going to do it now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, yep.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of why they're here, Tom. That's all right.
Counselor, could you give Mr. LeGrandi a copy?
Do you have an extra copy?
Absolutely.
Or I can make more
Who are you?
copies. No, I'm nobody.
Okay. So there were 3, so the text amendment, the full text amendment was presented at the last meeting. So I'm not going to go through it paragraph by paragraphs. The only reason I'm here tonight was that there was a couple questions and from the commissioners. I'm not sure, I think it was you on the 50 units.
So confused.
Yeah, so that's all right. So we want to make it a little clearer. So if you look at the first paragraph thing there, 2.8.2, so now it says, a maximum of 50 units may be permitted on any one application in the WFRD, that's the new zone. So that makes it clear that there's a maximum of 50 units. The second change was under 2.8.2. What we wanted to clarify here is that these townhouses will only be comprised of studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. So there's no 3-bedroom units, no 4-bedroom units. And then the last change had to do with paragraph 2.8.4. So this paragraph serves 2 purposes. Number 1, it establishes what workforce housing is. And workforce housing, simply in my words, are any applicant who wants to rent or own a unit has to earn 80% of the area median income. And what does that mean? Area median income for Trumbull would be approximately $100,000, $120,000. So if a person made 80% of that, if it were 100 and you made $80,000, you would be considered an applicant for one of these units. So we made it clear what the percentage would be, and it's 80% of the area median income. The second thing that had to be made clear was how many of the total units. I'm not saying you're going to get all 50. If it's a smaller lot, you'd get less, but whatever. You would have, at this time, 30% of the units have to be workforce. So whatever number there are, if there were 10, then 3 of them would have to be workforce. So that made that clear. The second thing was that we wanted to make it clear, well, how long would this workforce housing restriction be on the land records? And there's no requirement, so I'm just proposing 40 years. And that happens to correspond with what the state requires for affordable housing. So that's why I picked the number. There's no magic number. What was important for this commission was, would those units count towards the 10% affordability, and would it count towards a moratorium on points towards a moratorium on the affordable 830G applications. And my understanding from just speaking with the Department of Housing, it would. So what you have here is just a cleanup, in my opinion, a cleanup of the language that I had proposed in my original text amendment to just make it a little more straightforward and streamlined so you know what you're acting on. So that
No, that's good. Thanks. I have just a couple points, and
Yeah,
then
go
I'm
ahead.
going to let the commissioners. The points, one of the things that came to light in your last presentation was different than the pre-application process is there was a little ambiguity to the state level of workforce housing, and it's coming to Trumbull.
Oh,
And then in the last meeting, it was, thank you, Trumbull, for helping us. We're going to use Trumbull as an example to get it passed in Hartford. It almost felt like we were duped a little bit. We thought that it was a Hartford thing, and
Yeah,
then
let
in
me
the
explain
last
that.
meeting, when it became an application, it was, we're inventing this to use it as an example to hopefully get it passed in Hartford. That was a little,
Yeah, it was confusing.
Disconcerting.
So, yeah, I got it. So right now, I think the chairman's right. There's no workforce housing. The words aren't even used in the state statutes, so so it's not used. So there are what I think what we were trying to say, and it obviously didn't come out, was that this text amendment that I drafted would be something that would be used for this town.
right. So I'm gonna keep going. I'll just get it all out and then we can chew it up.
Yeah.
So another part of the Q&A that needed to be clarified was your initial presentation said that it would be between 60 and 120% and then comply. And then you and I went back and forth and I said, how would it comply if it's over the percentage? And you said you had an email that said it would, and you were gonna go back and figure it out. And then I see that you've made some clarifications because one of the things, if this was to pass, we would have to have complete, solid, legal definition and backup that whatever we were going to do was absolutely going to do it. So now, you've come back and you've actually done 180 degrees. Instead of being 60 to 120, it's now the 80%, right? So there is no variation.
Right.
In my initial review of this being called workforce housing, it was because it was a variant. It had some ambiguity in there, it had differences, it had all its own nuances, right? And you did clarify it, but by definition, what you did when you clarified it, you've turned it into black and white 830G affordable housing because it says they're 80%. So that makes it the affordable housing number, right?
No, that's not true.
It's not true. What's the number?
So, the affordable housing set-aside development,
Uh-huh.
that's one aspect, so, and that's the one you're probably most familiar with.
Right.
So, and that, under the affordable housing 830G, there's two. There's 60% and 80%.
Right.
So you have to have you have to have 15% of them set aside under 60% AMI and 15% under 80% AMI. That's
so
for the
they're both.
affordable.
Right.
So this does not say that. This is just straight workforce 80%, no 60%.
So if you have only 80%, it will count. You don't need both.
You're correct.
Okay. Then that's what the lawyers will have to prove.
The 60% gives you more points, correct?
No, not. I think you can check, but I think
Yeah.
what I was told was that as long as the restrictive covenant was for a certain length of time, then you would get the full points, even for the 80%.
Yeah, well, that'll all get vetted. We'll vet that. Okay, so I'm good with my questions.
Okay.
We're gonna go run around the room here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so the 2.8.2 establish in a district 3.1, 3I building standards. It used to say, the one in the center of the revisions, it used to say there must be a minimum of 60% one bedroom and studio, implying you could have up to 40% 2-bedroom. The
Or,
n-
yeah.
or more.
Or more, yeah.
The new one says there may only be studios 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom. So while it does ban 3-bedroom, it does allow someone to come in and have 100% 2-bedroom. I'd like to see both of those incorporated. The 60% 1-bedroom and studio was a solid plan, and having a 2-bedroom limit is also a solid plan. We shouldn't be limited to one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem with that. If that's
Yeah.
between you guys, right?
And it can be a combination.
It could be a combination. I was just trying to clean up so that make sure that it's black and white. You can't have 3 and 4 bedrooms.
What really,
If you like the
if
other-
a market wanted it and what the market can support and what they're going to develop, I agree there should be a combination. Hard numbers is, but it's agreeing with your point.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Cousins? Ms. Delvecchio?
I'm good for now.
You're good for now. Mr. Silver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question is, how is it that when you have a criteria for affordable housing of, the threshold of 30% of the units have to be designated in some formula, and the formula might vary. But if the rest of it is market, then it's not workforce housing. I mean,
The 30% is the workforce housing.
yeah, but so why are you marketing it as an affordable, as a workforce housing project when only 30% of it is, even by definition, because rents are high, even in the apartments in this town, right?
And,
So,
on Mr. Silver's point, you have something in here that says the maximum allowed rents affordable to middle income should reflect a discount. What does that mean? Because to
Yeah.
his point, only 30% are, and you're going to do the market, but you inflicted on yourself some ambiguous language here that says you have to do a discount. Is that 2%, 1%, 5%, 20%?
So the disc, what this does is, I think, allows. I think the commissioner's right. You know you're going to get at least 30% of the units at the workforce rate, and and that is a discount to market rate. And what that discount is varies from town to town, and they have these area calculators that can tell you what the maximum rent you can pay. So for the 30%, those will be considered workforce housing because the rents will be cheaper. How much cheaper, I can't say for sure without a calculator, but the idea is being something along the lines, if it was a market rate of $2,000, maybe these are only $1,500. So there would be a
the
less.
30% of
The
50.
30%. The others are market rate, right? Whatever you get from market rate. So whatever what the market will demand in
So
that area.
stay there for a second. You're saying the others are market rate. To Commissioner Silver's point, then what does that sentence, maximum allowed rents affordable to middle income households must reflect a discount to the market rents? What does that mean? To me, I'm reading that says the other than 30% is also going to have a discount.
So what that says is I can't tell you what that I can't tell you what the workforce rent is. I can't say it has to be $1,500, $1,250, $1,800. I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is that it has to be not only do you need 30% of the units to be considered workforce, but you also have to use the calculator to get at the lower rent.
So if the market is $2,500 for 2 bedrooms, so I'm making this up.
Yeah, you're making it up. Yeah, I got you.
Okay, we're good. So what are we going to discount it by? Because and I also want to know what the definition of workforce is. Is it police? Is it municipal workers? Or is it
income.
teachers?
It's all based on income.
Okay.
But to answer your question, the state of Connecticut produces a calculator, they call it. It's called a rent calculator. And depending on where your town is and what the AMI is, dictates what the maximum rent. So it won't be up to the person developing it. There'll be a calculator that says you cannot charge for a 1 bed, or in your case 2 bedrooms. You cannot charge $2,500 because that would perhaps be the market rate. You can only charge, I'm just making it up as well, $2,000.
And so this applies to every unit in the,
Only the workforce units.
well, again, it goes back to my original question, that it's not really workforce housing at all. It's just 30% of it is workforce. The rest of it is for any, whatever income level you're at.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that, but if you don't have this, okay, so let's just think about this for a minute. You don't have this text amendment. Then a developer could come in under 830G, and instead of limiting to 50 units, right, maximum on his property, he puts 200. And then he gets 30% of those being, quote, affordable. They're not all affordable. Only 30% are affordable, even under the affordable housing statute. And now the town is saddled with 200 units on a 1 acre piece that they really don't like.
830G isn't doing what it might have been intended to do.
I'm trying to agree with you on that.
No, I agree. Thank you. And
Yeah.
I just think, waiving 830G is like the boogeyman. It's just one thing that I don't think is constructive, but we have to deal with it. Not from you necessarily, but from a lot of applicants.
Yeah. Well, I think that this gives you a tool in your box to use in lieu of the 830G. That's why I bring it up. If a developer says, oh, you know what? I don't have to file an 830G application in Trumbull. I have 1 to 5 acres in the Zone A. You know what? I don't want to go to court for 5 years and fight, and you don't want to do that either. Why don't I just make an application under Steve's workforce residence district? And yeah, I'm limited in the number of density, but I don't have to fight. That's what it's for.
Yeah, I'm good. Commissioners, you all set? Rob, you have anything to add before we let Mr. Bellis go? No? Mr. Cordone, you all set?
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Just to confirm,
Sure.
this, if approved, would allow anyone within in a zone A within 300 feet of the IL2 zone, which is numerous properties, with just 1 acre. So somebody could purchase properties, unite them, and then come in and say, well, we'd like to put 49, or in this case, 50 units on that acre. And there are numerous areas where one could do that within the confines of the IL2 to Residence A border, which there are several around. On each individual acre
Right.
could be,
If this was allowed and where it could affect is everything we have to consider.
right.
You're correct.
I think that's why we changed 2.8.2 to make it clearer, to try to prevent that. Because if you're coming in with an application, you're limited to the 50. Unless, so that if there were different ownership, you couldn't do what you were trying to say. Because you would have one owner dividing up his lots. That's not what it's for.
I'm thinking the other way, if somebody were to purchase numerous lots next to each other that add up to an acre and then unite them.
Smaller lots.
Right, a reverse subdivision, combining the lots, eliminating the borders between them, and then you magically have a 1 acre property in a single A zone within 300 feet of an IL2 zone.
I think that's okay. I think that would be okay.
What would your objection be to that?
Yeah.
I'm not objecting to it or saying it's bad or good in any way. I'm just stating a fact that there are numerous properties that at present are not eligible for such a development, but could, and there's a very long border along the A to IL zone.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. People assemble parcels of land all the time for, various purposes. So I'm not sure that's that.
Exactly, so I'm just bringing it to light.
Okay.
We're all set. Thank you very much.
You're all set. Okay, so I guess we can close the hearing then under your protocols, because this was a public hearing, and then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't had public input, right? We did last time.
I think we did last time.
And we're going to do it, we would do it now too.
If you'd like, sure.
But hold on a second. let me get your opinion.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, if, we're not gonna vote tonight, because I
No,
wanna
you
give
said
them
that,
time,
yeah.
right? So, if anybody else here wants to speak, I'm gonna let them after we finish. But if in fact, during deliberation, there is modification, and during deliberation, and during the next month, somebody lifts up a rock and says, oh, this was missed, there's a major thing, does it make sense to close it now or leave it open till next month because we're not voting anyway? You know,
I'm open to whatever the commission wants to do. I'm not. If you want
Right.
to keep it open, that's okay with me.
yeah.
If you want to close it, that's okay with me. But if something
Yeah.
comes up,
I don't think there's anything, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
protect everybody.
Yeah.
In case when somebody goes back and vets everything that you did and there's input from the
yeah,
commissioners.
I have no problem with that. If you find something, then have Jim
Right.
contact me.
Because
or
I know we
staff.
have the right, during the deliberations, we can modify it and turn it upside down and put all the words backwards and say, this is what we're voting
Sure
on,
you
and that's
can.
what we approve. But we like to give
Well,
everybody
then leave
opinion.
it. Then leave it open. It's okay with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Attorney Bellis, you'll consent to the extension of time required
Yeah.
to keep the
If it
hearing?
requires an extension, it probably does. Then I'll send you a letter.
Okay. But you could just put on the record now.
Oh,
you
I put it
consent.
on the record. Then I would consent to the extension of time.
Right.
Thank you,
and
Counsel.
then compounding, the two commissioners may watch
Yeah.
and then have a question. So I want them to be able to ask you a question on the
Yeah.
record if it occurs.
So I'll come back next month, and
Great.
by that time, hopefully they'll have an opportunity to review the tape.
Okay. Yeah. So motion to continue the hearing. Oh wait. Yeah. Is there anybody from the audience who would like to speak for or against? Go ahead. Come on up. Name and address for the record.
Hello, Steve Hodson, 108 Fern Circle in Trumbull, Connecticut. Just a question, I didn't know the density of the project, and then I was wondering too, in terms of the market rate units, in lieu of 2-bedroom units, might they consider 1 bedroom with a den or an office? I know there's a big market for that, and less of a burden on our services as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things that the commissioners would discuss.
Okay.
You know, this application, just for yourself and the applicant himself, I am someone who's been in favor of the den because of COVID and because of the volume of people that now work from home.
Right.
I work from home a couple days. There may be many people in this room do. People do need a home office. Everyone is in fear of it becoming the extra bedroom and more children. We understand that.
Right.
That's a dichotomy we have as a planning and zoning commission to say, do we allow the dens? I've leaned towards it in other ones because people need to be able to work from home. If you want to attract professionals, professionals do work from home and they don't want to work at the dining room table or in the kitchen. So
There's a
I
big
get
demand
it.
for that. Okay,
Yeah, that'll be part of the discussion.
thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for or against? No? Okay. Motion to continue. Mr. Silver, second. To our February meeting. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Okay, next. Text amendment. Applicant is the Town of Trumbull Planning and Zoning Department requesting to modify Trumbull Planning and Zoning regulations, revising Article 17 moratorium on multifamily residential housing. Copy of regulations on file with Trumbull P&Z Office, Trumbull Town Kirk, file 2501. Staff wants to do any explanation. This is the normal extension of the moratorium on high-density housing that we've done each year, correct?
Yes, yes, sir. Yep. So we're requesting a continuance of the moratorium for housing. As such, we've just to give a brief recap of what's been going on this past year. We've approved this last year. We approved the residence on Main, the property near the mall. We finally have all 5 buildings that have been CO'd, so they're filling up. We also have Trumbull Center, which was approved, that is not being built yet, and also Gateway Commons. So we haven't really seen what the impact is of those.
Which one's
projects.
Gateway Commons?
Gateway's, I'm sorry, on the Monroe Trumbull line.
That's, yeah, that one's on pause too, as a little bit.
Yes,
but-
so we don't know what the impacts are of these approvals that have been done, so I think it's, I
Right.
think staff agrees that we should continue this moratorium for another year.
I think there was a quote in the newspaper that referenced that same thought.
Smart guy.
Okay. Any questions on this text amendment? on the moratorium being extended? No? Mr. Deacon? Motion to approve. Second. Public comment. Is there any public comment on our moratorium? Come on up. What's the guy in favor of?
All right, good evening. I'll keep this quick. I know we have a birthday to celebrate. I forget whose. Happy birthday. I've come the last couple of years to ask you to let. Can you? Oh,
Name and
Thomas,
address.
Thomas Broderick, 20 Woolsey Avenue, Trumbull. I've come the last couple of years asking you to let the multifamily moratorium expire. I know I'm unlikely to win. I get that. But I just wanted to say for a couple of minutes that I think you've pursued a really smart policy. We have a lot of underutilized outlying areas in Trumbull. There's a market demand for those homes. We talked about empty nesters, downsizing potentially, professionals coming in, their tax revenue, and we have the data pretty firmly that they're not straining our services. I understand what you're saying. You want more time. I think if there's a market demand to build, let's see what they'll build. So I'd ask you to let that go. Trumbull's a great town. And again, I think about my parents right now. They just retired. They're looking for apartments near my sister and I down here. There's not a lot out there. So as much as we can build, I think that's great for us, great for the people. Thank you for your time. Happy birthday. Thank you.
Thanks. See you next year.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Okay, anybody else for or against? No? All right, hearing none, I will close the hearing. Motion to close. Deacon, second. Del Vecchio. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll take a motion to approve.
With respect to Mr. Broderick, I do make the motion to approve.
Is there a second? Ms. Del Vecchio, any further conversation? No, hearing none. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyone against? Mr. Cousins. 4-1, passes, and it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan of development, and the effective date is 1/24/25. Just even though the hearing's closed, young man, one of the things that he said is true, and so are you. They're both true. One of the things we require of the developers is to show us an impact plan, and one of the things I've said to folks who come up to the podium as the impact plans have proven true or less. What he's describing is all the new ones that are approved who had impact plans who haven't had a chance to prove them yet. That's the gap. So you both are right. I just wanted to add.
I'm not allowed to speak.
No. That's the advantage of having this. Only me, right? Okay. Next, 824 referral, municipal improvements referral, report to the town council regarding a purchase from the state of Connecticut of a lot map K080055 on Shelton Road, consisting of approximately 9.8 acres. Mr. Cordone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is before you is an 8-24 referral to the Trumbull Town Council. The state of Connecticut owns this property and had put it out to bid. They did receive a successful bidder, but according to state law, the town of Trumbull has the right of first refusal, and the town is now asking to exercise that right. We do have a letter from the state of Connecticut stating that we have to close on the property by March 7th in order to exercise our right of first refusal. It's approximately 9 acres. It abuts Route 8 and Shelton Road in between that area. There are some wetlands there, and there is some forest, but it's a rather large piece of property, and it is prudent for the town to maintain control of this site.
It's pretty much all the land behind the old gas station, parallel with Route 8, right?
That is correct.
Okay, we're going to go to commissioners first if there's any input before the public. Rob, you have anything to add? No? No. All right, Mr. Cousins, anything to add? Mr. Deacon?
This seems like an excellent plan.
Ms. Del Vecchio? Mr. Silber?
Thank you.
Ms. Hall? All good. All good. We are not required to have public input on 824s, but I allow them, always have. Does anybody want to give any input on this? For or against? No, hearing none. Motion to close the hearing. This isn't a hearing, right? No, we don't have to close it. All right, I'll take a motion. Move. Deacon. Second, Ms. Delvecchio. Any further discussions? Your motion was to approve, right? Okay, good. All right, I don't want you coming at me. I didn't hear, you just did one of these. Okay, no further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, is there a planner's report?
No, nothing at this time.
No? All right. No reports on this year's martial arts team going to the Worlds? No? We're all set? All right. Okay. Accepting to the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I read the minutes and I found them to be in their usual order. I make a motion to approve.
Second, Ms. Delvecchio. Any questions? None? All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
At that meeting? I don't
Yeah.
think-
Okay,
Right, so
so
I'm
you're gonna abstain. It's only
Yeah.
4, Linda, and 1 abstention. 3. I guess I should look up when I'm counting. That would probably help, right? All right. 3 and 2 abstentions. Got it. Anything else before the commission this evening? I will not be singing, so good luck with your cake. Motion to close. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome, Ms. Hall.